Welcome to Old Man Sports Talk. I'm your host, Old Man Nate, and it's Oklahoma versus Texas, Red River rivalry or shootout, I'm sorry, whatever you want to say. It is time for one of the best rivalry games in college football or even sports. Second week of October, you got the state fair. No other game, football game, college or pro, sporting event, anything is held inside of a state fair. You got the corn dog smell, 50-50 split down the middle. It's a neutral site game, even though it's in Texas. It's still halfway between Austin and halfway between Norman. And some people think if it's in Texas, it's got to be a home field advantage for them. And technically, really, it's not. You go down there, you're going to see literally not only half the field split in half Texas, half Oklahoma fans. You're going to see just walking around the state fair, if you're a bunch of orange and a bunch of red. So it's a great environment. To me, it's one of the best, if not the best, rivalry in not just college football, but all of sports. I've been there about 5 or 6 times. I've been inside the stadium. I've been watched the game outside the stadium, and there is nothing like it. So can't wait for this week. This is probably the biggest and most excited for either team to be for where they're both coming in about equal or both pretty good. Usually, recently it seemed like one team is down and the other team should win easily. And this year, it's not that way. It looks like it's both teams think they can win, and we're going to find out. I will say this though: this is a game. This is a game that even I have been to the game when OU was heavily predicted to win and got their butts whooped. So um, I don't remember the exact year. I'm going to think probably, man, it was I think it was before Baker, so maybe 2014, somewhere around there. OU was a top five or top 10 team. I think they were either undefeated, maybe had one loss. Texas was like, I think it was under Charlie Strong. He had one win, something like that. And I remember I'm heading inside the stadium and I walk by and there's a kid, he's probably about 12 years old, wearing his Texas Longhorn jersey, and there's a woman, and I'm going to assume they knew each other, right? I don't know, but I'm just walking by, and I can hear her like giving him the third degree, telling him that, and I'm walking by, I can hear her say, "We're gonna whoop your ass," and he just starts crying. And at the end of the day, though, I'm pretty sure she was the one crying because Texas whooped our ass that day. So anyway, it's one of those games where you cannot. It's really truly hard to give an accurate prediction. We all think that what this is what should happen, but the underdog team always they don't lay down. I remember this was in um like maybe 97. John Blake, his first year, it was either 96 or 97. I don't remember how many years he coached exactly at OU. And his first year, though, he was 0-4 heading into that game. And OU was not very good. And James Allen ran in. And this actually, I believe it was also the first year they had started having overtime. and OU won in overtime on a James Allen touchdown, his first win. So I've seen both sides where we was heavily favored and lost, and I've seen where we were not expected to win and won. So you really can't give an accurate prediction. We can look and see, well, this is what could or should um, help decide the game, or where this team is stronger at and should be stronger at than the other. But again, the team that, that is the underdog doesn't lay down, and they always come with a fight. And if the team that is favored is doesn't respond well to that fight, they get punched in the mouth all day. So, and here's a game where um, it's about even. In fact, the last time I looked at the spread for Vegas, um, Texas opened up as a 4.5 point favorite last Sunday night. Here we are Thursday night, and they're down to a 1 point favorite. And um, here, I'm going to go ahead and look real quick because there was some news that came out, which I'm going to discuss, and I want to see if that affected the wager at all. So let's look real quick while we're recording this video and see if we had any change. Yep. So yeah. Um, Earlier today, Texas was a 1 point favorite. Now OU's a 1 point favorite. And that's because of the news, which I'm going to discuss here in just a little bit. Okay. So we'll go ahead and talk about it now. The big news for this week is John Mateer going to play? If you watch my video I posted 2 weeks ago, just a couple days after the surgery, I said John Mateer will play against Texas. It's in big old headlines. Go find the thumbnail. And then I explained the video on why he would play. Okay. Well, came out to, they got in the SEC, they have to give an injury report starting 3 days before your game, which I think every SEC team, I don't think there's any SEC game that's ever on Thursdays or Fridays. Okay. So Saturdays has to be done 3 days before. That means Wednesday night. The injury report has to be put in. And last night, when it was first released, he was listed as questionable, which questionable means he may play, he may not play. Okay. It's about a 50-50 there. And then you have to give one on Thursday, you have to give one on Friday, and then you also have to give one an hour and a half before your game on Saturday. Okay. The Sooners play at 2:30, so that means 2:30 Central Time. So that means that final report has to be in by 1. And to be honest with you, probably we're going to know before then anyways. Okay, before it's released, because he'll be on if he's playing, he'll be out on the field throwing by probably around 1. I anticipate that's when he'll be out there. So, but the report that came out today was he was probable. So he already upgraded from questionable to probable. And the only other step from probable is your off injury report, which means you're 100% available. So I think that I don't think he'll come off it tomorrow. I really don't. I think he'll come off it Saturday when he'll come off. But I like I said, 2 weeks ago he was playing. Nobody believed me. I got a bunch of, especially Texas fans. I got a bunch of nasty messages. Not so much on my YouTube. I had a lot of views, but not a lot of comments. But on my TikTok, yeah, I had a lot of comments on there, and a lot of people that didn't believe me. So, but anyhow, so that's why the spread moved a full 2 points once once it was named that John Mateer was going to went to Pro Bowl. And if they completely take him off, it'll probably go up at least another point, maybe a point and a half. So maybe 2 points too. Who knows? So let's talk about the game now. So Texas is coming off a very stunning loss to Florida last week. They, you know, they didn't. I don't think they were thinking that was going to happen. Florida's not been very good this year. They didn't. Their offense has not been able to move the ball consistently. Well, they moved it. They did move it against LSU. They turned it over, I think, 5 times. So sometimes they move it, but they just turn it over a lot. They didn't. I don't think they turned the ball over at all against Texas. But Texas had 2. Arch Manning had 2 interceptions. I know that. And Texas didn't really get started until the fourth quarter. Tried to make it look like a respectable game, but Florida really dominated that game. And that's their second loss of the season. Remember, they lost week 1 against Ohio State, the defending national champions. So they had back-to-back losses to Ohio State because Ohio State's the one that eliminated them from the playoff last year. Then they turned around and played them first game of the season and lost to them both times. And the Sooners are 5-0 heading into this matchup. Some people probably didn't think that would happen, including they beat Michigan, and they had a conference win against Auburn, against their last year's quarterback, Jackson Arnold. So, I don't know, I just never realized that. Let me mute that. Okay. So, anyhow, this was, I guarantee you, a lot of people heading into this, if you asked them before the season started, if I told you one team was going to be 5-0, one team would be 3-2, which would you think? Almost everybody in the country would have said Texas would be 5-0, Oklahoma would be 3-2. But if you go back and watch my shows before the season, I told you guys that Texas was not going to be as good as they were last year, and Oklahoma was going to be much improved. And in fact, I told you Oklahoma was going to fight for the SEC championship. And they've got some tough games ahead, but they definitely got potential to do that. All right, they've looked really good. And we're going to go over some rankings really quick. So the Oklahoma, and these are some rankings for both Oklahoma and Texas. Okay. Now, Oklahoma is, as far as giving up sacks, their offensive line is ranked 58th in the country, giving up 1.6 sacks a game. Texas is 69th, giving up 1.8 sacks a game. So offensive lines, not much difference. Okay. Tackles for losses given up. OU's 104th, giving up 6.2, whereas this one I looked at, it didn't make sense to me. They got Texas at 35th, giving up 4.40. To me, it should have been the opposite. Texas has given up less tackles for loss. Okay, turnovers. OU is 58th in the country, having turned the ball over 6 times, 3 interceptions, and 3 fumbles. Okay. And also, Texas is 58th in the country, turned the ball over 6 times. But the difference is they have only fumbled 1 time, but Arch Manning has thrown 5 interceptions, including 2 last week against Florida. Points scored. The Sooners are 46th in the country, averaging 33.8 points a game, whereas Texas is 63rd, only averaging 29.6 points a game. Passing yards, the Sooners are, let me look at that, 30th in the country at 278 yards per game. Texas is 56th, averaging 246 yards a game. Rushing yards. Now, this is the Sooners' weakest part. They're ranked 96, averaging only 137 yards a game, whereas Texas is 55th, averaging 172 yards a game. And then total yards, the Sooners are 54th with 415.2 yards a game. Texas 51st at 419.2 yards a game. So they're pretty even, only 4 yard difference between yards per game between them. Now, it looks like the defensive side, though. The Sooners are number one in the country at 4.2 sacks a game. Texas is 52nd at 2.2 sacks per game. Tackles for loss, the Sooners are first in the country at 10 tackles for loss per game. That's 14. Those are different than sacks. So that's 14 tackles for loss in a game the Sooners are having. Whereas Texas is 91st with just 5 tackles for loss per game, and that's 7 total. So the Sooners get twice as many tackles for loss than the Longhorns do. Turnovers forced. Now, this surprisingly, as good as OU's defense is, this is also their weakest part. Is they're 128th in the country with just 2 turnovers. They've only forced 2 turnovers this year, 1 fumble and 1 interception. And both of those didn't come until last week. So as good as their defense has been, they did it without forcing any turnovers. That is actually really impressive. For Texas, they're 23rd in the country, forced 9 turnovers, 3 fumbles, and 6 interceptions. Points allowed. The Sooners are second in the country, only allowing 7 points a game. And Texas is not too far behind at 5th in the country, only allowing 12 points per game. Passing yards given up, the Sooners are second in the country, only allowing 118 yards per game. The Longhorns, 33rd, allowing 180 yards per game. Rushing yards, the Sooners are 5th in the country, giving up 74.6 yards a game, and the stingy Longhorns are 11th at 79.6 yards per game. So both of these teams have really good rushing defenses. Total yards a game they're giving up, the Sooners are first in the country at 193 yards a game. Longhorns 13th at 210 yards per game. Now, up until last week, the Longhorns were, a lot of people thought they had the best defense in the SEC, but Florida ran up and down the field on the Longhorns last week. So was that a fluke, or was what we've seen from the Longhorns all season kind of a fluke? All right. So we haven't seen anybody really get a lot of yards on the Sooners. That includes Auburn and Michigan. So we'll see if Texas, if Arch and the Manning boys, Texas Longhorns, see if they can do something. Now, here's another stat I want to throw out there really quick, which I think is going to be huge. There's huge in it. I didn't go over the special teams. I didn't have time, really room on my paper to write those down. But looking at that, I will say this: Oklahoma has a huge advantage in special teams. Their punter is really good. He's like top 3 in the country on net yards. Their field goal kicker, he's only missed 1 all season, which I think Texas has a really good field goal kicker also. So I'm not saying that is a huge advantage, but Texas punter is not near as good. And then punt return yards are actually about the same. I thought OU was going to have an advantage in that, but Texas actually has had some success running. Neither one of them have ran punts or kickoffs back, but the Sooners have gotten a lot of yards, and Texas has got some yards. Now, here's the one thing, though. The Longhorns have had a punt blocked. Okay, so that might be something that the Sooners go back and watch the film. I'm not sure. Last week. They had a punt block last week. Yeah, Florida blocked a punt. So for a safety. So That's something that the Sooners might look at, see if they can gain an advantage there, see if they see a weakness, and can try and attack the punter on that one. And the Sooners did against. Now, to me, it may have been a bad snap, but against Michigan, it don't count as a blocked punt, but they actually tackled the punter. He yeah, they tackled him against Michigan. He didn't get the kickoff. He tried to throw it, but he was already down before he threw it. So but another area I want to talk about is penalties. Penalties per game. The Sooners are averaging just 5.8 penalties, roughly around 6 penalties a game for 55 yards a game. The Longhorns are averaging almost 9 at 8.8 penalties per game and 76 yards per game. Now, to kind of throw that in perspective, okay, there's actually only 3 teams in all of college football that have averaged more penalty yards per game than Texas, and that's Texas Tech at 9, Texas A&M at 9.40, and Georgia State at 12 penalties per game. So here you're going to be in a 50-50 split or football stadium. And when you're on the Oklahoma side, I can promise you they're going to be loud. That's going to cause false starts. Or you're gonna have Arch Manning, finally get some time to try and find somebody, and you got a lineman grab somebody and gets a hold and a critical down. You got second and 7, and now we get a hold. Now it's 2nd and 17 on a critical down. So I really think that stuff like that is what's going to dictate who wins the game. This is Oklahoma's defense is the best. The front 7 is the now remember Texas played Ohio State, who has not allowed a rushing touchdown this season, and they played Florida, who's a top 15 defense in the country. Neither one of those front 7 are as good as OU's. OU sacked Jackson Arnold for Auburn 10 times. They have 21. No, my bad. Hold on. Where are we at? 4 point. Yeah, they have 21 sacks this season, leading the country. So, in 5 games, they're averaging 4.2 a game. They're coming after Arch. Okay, and if Texas's offensive line is not better, Arch might get hurt. Okay, because they're coming for him. This is a rivalry game. I'm not saying they want to hurt anybody, because you never want that to happen. But when you're playing against your rival, you give that extra effort. You hit them hits are a little bit harder. Okay, so yeah, I could definitely see Arch getting a lot of pressure. I wanted to go and see how many times he's been hit. I didn't get a chance to do that, but I wanted to see how many times he's been hit in every game. I know even Sam Houston got some pressure on him, right? So Texas offensive line has not been very good, not pass protection and not running. Oklahoma's offensive line has been pretty good, pass protection, although last week they did give up like 3 sacks, which is crazy because they played Kent State. They shouldn't have gave up any sacks. And but the running run the ball, they have not been able to run the ball very well outside of John Mateer and Hawkins. Okay. So now it's coming down who's going to play quarterback for OU. Okay. Me personally, I feel like if John Mateer plays, the Sooners win and probably win by double digits. Okay. If Hawkins plays, there's a good chance that the Sooners could still win, specifically because of the 3 main areas I've talked about so far. The penalties that Texas is, giving up per game, the special teams, pinning Texas back deep, especially when they're on OU's end of the field. And then the defense of his pressure is just going to get to Manning, Arch Manning. Now, bringing that pressure, the Sooners defense has got to do two things though. They have to have a spy on Arch Manning because he can run. He's fast. He can run. He's probably not as fast as Jackson Arnold. And for the most part, they kept him in check. He did get loose a couple times, and especially on big downs, he got loose. And then they're gonna because they're bringing pressure, they're gonna be man-to-man coverage. Now, I don't think Texas receivers are as good as Auburn's, especially Coleman. Wingo is good; he's got some speed, so you're gonna have safety help over the top with him. Okay, but I don't. They're not as big. They're not as big. Livingston's kind of big. I think he's probably about 6'1". He got hurt last week, but he is expected to play. He's also probable on the injury report today, so he's expected to play. But he's been their most consistent receiver too. So, but yeah, I don't think they're as good as Auburn's receivers. And Auburn's receivers ate. They did, especially against Guillory, our true freshman. Now Bowen is back. So I don't know if he played. He was supposed to be back last week. I didn't notice him playing at all. But I really think he's going to play a lot in this game. So anyhow, right now I'm picking the Sooners to win. And if John Mateer plays, it's 100%. Sooners win. Like I said, by double digits. If he doesn't play, most likely I would say Texas wins, but the Sooners could win with Hawkins. They just got to slow the game down and got to get the defense, got to really rely on the defense, including, making the defense creating turnovers and maybe even scoring on a turnover. So, which is something we did a couple times since Brent Venables was there. We scored a few touchdowns defensive wise. Including last week, we got our first turnover was a fumble recovery for the touchdown. So anyhow, if Arch Manning, I don't want to say this, Arch Manning gets put out, I am a little I haven't seen their backup a lot. He came in for one play. He threw a really good pass. I was like, man, I hope he don't play against OU because he looked like he's better than Arch. But for whatever reason, they're not giving him a chance. So anyhow, if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell. That way you get notified every time Old Man Nate goes live or drops a video. I will do a pregame show live probably about an hour before OU Texas. And by that time, we should know for sure if John Mateer is playing. So anyway, appreciate you guys all for watching. And, please leave some comments that, good or bad. That's what helps me out a lot. Share with your friends, share the video with your friends. Leave some likes and all that. All right. One more time, I appreciate y'all for watching, and we'll see you right here next time on Old Man Sports Talk.